mainly it's talking about phishing in here. I'll tell you that. They told us it would be something a little different, but that's not. But it's a good and important one because we're continuously hit with lots of different phishing emails and text. For 2 weeks now, I have gotten 2 different phishing texts that say that I have won a contest with Amazon. Not won, I took second place in a contest with Amazon and get some ear pods. And that it comes in and it's got a lot of the suspicions will show, red flags will show throughout here. So let me first introduce myself. I am Dwight Watt. I'm a member of the Swainsboro Kiwanis Club. I'm also a member of the Fort Oglethorpe Kiwanis Club, which is in Georgia, but in the Kentucky-Tennessee district. And I am the vice governor of the Kentucky-Tennessee district. But I'm active in both of those clubs. And I live in both communities. So actually this is coming from Swainsboro. So let me go on and get started. And I just realized I'm on the wrong screen. And it doesn't help to click there. So all we're going to do is go through today and basically go through and look at phishing on the stuff and then how to identify them and what to do with them, and also email spoofing, which I don't know if Georgia got hit, but I know Kentucky, Tennessee leadership got hit with some email spoofing ones just a month ago that appeared to come from the governor that went to the leadership, and I obviously got it sent to me from there as part of the leadership. And I'm not sure if, and I know a lot of other districts did too, so I'm going to mention that one when we get to there. Phishing, they've got as a definition just a process to get bad guys try to trick you into giving out sensitive information or doing a dangerous action in the email. So they'll do that with the emails disguised as contacts or organizations you trust, so that you react without thinking first. And that's the big part, is you got to think before you click on stuff in emails. And how you react when you're using phones to look at them and when you're using your laptops and PCs is going to be a little bit different too. Spear phishing. Phishing emails are sent to massive numbers of people. Spear phishing is where it's a phishing email that's sent to targeted groups and to targeted individuals. They've took a little bit more trouble to it to get it down to who they're sending it to. So for instance, that text that I just mentioned that says it's from Amazon saying I'd won a second place in a contest actually is a spear phishing one, because it's got my name on it. It says, Dwight, you won second place in the Amazon contest. That was an interesting one that they keep putting on it, that you won second place. And I think that's to put my alertness down a little bit. So spear is where you're aiming, where it's aimed more at a much smaller target audience, and then just a regular phishing is just a general one. And then if y'all got questions along the way, just interrupt me, but this thing probably is going to fill up our whole 50 minutes here. The spoofing is where they'll fake the address it's coming from. And obviously you get phishing phone calls too, or they would be actually phishing, that come in looking like they're from not the number they came from. Because I don't know about y'all, but I have gotten the calls about my car warranty from my own number. It comes in and it shows up that it's coming from me. And when I've answered it just to see what in the world this is, because I know I'm not calling myself, and it starts off telling me they've been trying to reach me about my car warranty is about ready to run out. Well, that's a little funny always, because my car's only got 791,000 miles on it. So I actually talked to them one day and went, I'd be interested in getting this warranty. And then when I told the guy that, he hung up on me. I still don't know why. Multi-factor authentication, you're seeing that more and more out there. And that's where when you go to identify yourself and that you're authenticating yourself to the system, you're telling it more than one way, you're showing that it's you. So authentication is just verifying that it really is you, that who you say you are. So you've put in a username and then you authenticate on it, and that can be using a lot of ways. Password is the most common one and the one we all know. But now what you have a lot of times is it requires two authentications from you to verify that you really are who you say you are. So password would be one. One that's quite common now is that it will send a code to your phone, and then you guys type that code in. And so it's verifying that really is you. It could generate other numbers. It could also be one, if you're using your phone and stuff a lot of times, of where it scans your eye or does fingerprint on you or something else. So different ways of additional ways to show it really is you. That's all you're doing with authentication. And I thought I had added a slide back here at the beginning that I don't see in here. That's interesting. Well, we'll see as we get down to the end. Maybe I put it at the end. And maybe I forgot to save it. Hold on one second, because no, it would be in there. Okay. I don't know where it is. All right. It is one that can be misused, but it is much more secure on it, because now you've got two different ways that you've proven you are who you are. It's not bulletproof by any means, and that you still need to be fully paying full attention to what you're doing. SolarWinds is the one that just came out just back in the November, December, that had attacked a lot of different government agencies and companies that had gotten installed. And SolarWinds is actually a network monitoring management software that's used by a lot of organizations out there. And it's been accused mainly on the Russians for doing it, although the Chinese have been accused too. I haven't seen anything really authenticate exactly who did it, and that they built in backdoors and were getting into all kinds of stuff. But phishing attacks will like to use it, in that they're trying, and a lot of the phishing attacks, they're trying to find your password or find ways to get into your accounts. But multi-factor authentication does make it much safer on it. There's my slide. Okay. I knew I added a slide in here, and this was the one I added. So most of this presentation is going to talk about the phishing and things to identify on emails, but I want to throw these things into you first. And I've got a misspelling in there, which is not good. Is that for antivirus, you definitely need an antivirus on any of your devices, be it your phone, be it your computer, or whatever. And every time I do this presentation, that's one I'm always asked about, so that's why I added it in. The one I am currently using for antivirus is Avast. It's available free. You can buy it also. It does do a pop-up ad sometimes on you. There's other good ones out there too, but Avast is one that I am currently using, and I use the free edition. Clamshell is supposed to be a good one. I've had students tell me that one's good. Norton I used to use, but you have to pay for Norton. Malwarebytes, if you're going to get a good one from them, you got to use paid version. Their free version doesn't monitor your machine the whole time. McAfee I do not like, and it's been around. It and Norton are probably the two oldest ones that are still in business today. Avast has actually been around for over 25 years, but McAfee I've seen let too many things through when I have had it on machines. And looking at pictures of y'all, most of y'all probably remember I Love You. That came out about 2000. When I'm talking to my students, that was before their time. And that McAfee let it right on through at the school I was at that time, and all kinds of people at school lost all kinds of stuff on it because they went and clicked on the emails and clicked on the text in it. And I had Norton on my machine also, and Norton told me it looked suspicious first thing that morning and protected me. McAfee had let it right on through in the school lockdown later. And then I've watched several other times McAfee let things through. So I just do not like that product. Now, if you like it, that's fine. But that's just the one I don't like. Most of the rest I have good opinions of, and I've used some. They are not good on spyware, which is not going to be viruses, but it's going to be things that pop up all kinds of messages and everything else on you. In the past, I did use spyware search and destroy, which was decent, but the one I really liked for a number of years now is super anti-spyware. The word there is wrong at the first of that line. It shouldn't have the E in there, but the address is correct because I did spell it right there. I've used both the free and the paid versions of those. They charge you, if you watch on them after you sign up for it, they'll give you a special every few weeks for a $10 5 machines lifetime license on it, which is what I did a while back. And what that will do is automatically update it for you all the time. If you don't do the paid one, it will send you a message to update it regularly. So it's real good on catching things. I will warn you, first time you run that and do a full scan on your machine, don't freak out when it finds 1,000 instances on your machine of stuff there, because there's all kinds of little stuff that really probably isn't hurting you, but has gotten on there. But it will, sometimes spyware can get to be a real problem where it pops up messages and just collides with some other stuff and can slow your machine down. And I say I found that one's the one I currently like best, and I've liked it for a number of years. Avast I've been using for a few years now, but probably every 3 or 4 years I switch to another product, but I've stayed on that one for a good while now. All right, now on into when you look at these URLs, because when you look at an address on that it's sent you a link to click on, or that you're looking up there at the email address, be aware of what you're looking at right there on it. So they mentioned right here, there's a protocol, a subdomain, and a domain. Actually, that subdomain's not always a subdomain, and probably in this case of their example, it's not really a subdomain, but just tells us which server it's on. But it could be a subdomain also. Sometimes that gets a little bit longer there. And so they show 2 subdomains. So when they're actually showing the server, they're calling it a subdomain on it. And this one's got a different protocol to it, because notice this one's got HTTP on it. With that, your information is being sent unencrypted across the network, which means that anybody that gets a program of a packet tracer on a packet analyzer on it that watches the traffic, they can read whatever you're sending right across there, which is back the original way the internet was. But if you send a password across and I'm sitting there watching your traffic and reading the packets, which is how it sends them across, which is basically like letters, they're not encrypted, and I can read exactly what your password is. And now I know what your password is. If instead it uses HTTPS, then it sends it encrypted. Now, HTTPS is actually secure HTTP, and HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which means it works with the HTML language that your web pages are written in. So if you're on a web page that you're going to enter personal information into, you want up there at the top of the page for it to always say HTTPS and not to just say HTTP. Or if it's not showing that to you, the other thing it will show you on the URL line is there's a little lock appears on there. And if that lock is locked, it's actually using HTTPS, and that says everything you send to the server and it sends back to you is encrypted between the 2 locations. If the lock's unlocked, it's not encrypted. So if you're going to go buy something on a page, make sure it's got HTTPS up there. Now, that doesn't mean that's a good page. It just means that whoever did it has paid to have that secure, to send it securely, but they might not be using your data correctly. So don't think that's a complete protection on that. So the middle part of this is the domain name. Usually you'll see people referring to both the second and third part there, that starbucks.com is the domain name. The .com is just what is the major categories they fit into. Used to be only about 6 categories. Now they're unlimited because you can actually create an extension for that last part of the domain name and buy all kinds of additional ones. Now they're expensive. The Washington Post is an example of one that created their own and bought, because they've got a .pst. That way they can do Washington P and then a .pst or something. OST, sorry. And so it's Washington P.OST and spells out nicely on their name. And that doesn't have .com. But most things are .com, .gov, .org, etc. You got to watch this domain name there. That's where you're going to have the giveaway quite often that what you're looking at is not good. So here's another one that they've got there. But you want to make sure that's spelled correctly, and they'll do all kinds of things with that where it looks close, but it's not really right. So now they tell you, stop, look, and think is what you're always going to do, is the first thing. So when you get that email, before you click on the link in it, stop, look, and think. And we'll go through that a little bit more in just a minute. Second one is look for red flags in there, which goes along with Endo's process. And the third one is, if there's any doubts in the process above, just throw out that email and don't do anything with it. So when you look at this, that you've gone on a web page and they've got a button for you to click on, look at where those link to always first before going to them. So if we look down here, if you hover over the links, it will show you the actual real link behind it. Now on the telephone, that's on the cell phones, that's the problem. You can't just hover over them, but if you move over them and don't click let up on it, is what I've been told. Now, I haven't tried this on my phone yet since I learned this, is that if you move over it and hold right there, not letting up your finger, that it will show you what the real address is, and then move off of it. But you got to make sure you don't let go, because if you let go, you're going to go to that site, whatever it is. So that's not a real good solution on it. But I've been told that will work, but sort of not. If you're on the laptop or desktop where you're using a mouse type thing, and it could be even using your little pad down there with a finger, you can move over it and not click on it, and it will show, just like they're showing here, somewhere on your screen, it will show you what the actual address is. It may be a little pop-up right there. It may be down at the bottom of the screen. You got to look, and you can see where is that going to actually go to. Now, sometimes when it's buttons like that, it won't, because of how it was coded in. But there, we can look down there and we can see that's going to gosign.adobe.com. And that's just telling. And so since it's adobe.com, we're probably safe. So the domain is adobe.com, and that's where we're on an Adobe page is what they were showing. So it's probably a safe spot. So look at that. And that would be, if that's got a different name for the domain than Adobe, that's a red flag for you. Although sometimes they're real on it. So that's a confusing one. So here's one, it's Secret Santa sign up. And if you look down there, that when they hovered over it, it actually says fishwall.net. Well, that's supposedly on a Kiwanis page, and it's going to fishwall.net. Well, that sounds rather suspicious, and this real long name. So in that case, don't do it. Okay. And the other one is to watch up here, and you can hover over up there on the return address also where it says hr@kiwanis.org. You could look at that, hover over it, or that it may well show something different than you expect right there. So I just gave you that it was fishwall.net. And then the question is, and then in this case, my suggestion to you would be throw it out or contact, since it says it came from Human Resources at Kiwanis, contact them separately, looking up their email address separately, not using this one, look it up separately, or call them and ask, is this a real email that you sent to? And then deal with it. Here's one that you can spoof the names. This is real easy to do because you can go in and change in the settings on your machine to where what the name appears in front is different. Well, we know who Arthur Riley is because we heard from him this morning that he's the international president. But notice what address it says it's from. David Shire 00 at, and I can't read the rest because I got pictures sitting on top of here. And I thought I reduced there, got rid of them, at gmail.com. Well, right off there, you know that that's not correct. Now, what they will do sometimes is actually use a different address, and they can actually change what address it does appear in there. But definitely watch this front part. And that can be used for some fun things too sometimes. Because I've actually gone in and changed mine at Christmas time for some little kids and sent the note where it said Santa Claus up there instead. So I wasn't doing anything malicious. So it's not always malicious. So if you're not sure if it's phishing, don't do anything on it if there's any suspicions raised. So if you know it's phishing, definitely delete it. Don't click on the links, because as soon as you click on the links, you can be downloading software onto your machine. It may be reading stuff off of your machine. And if you enter anything in there, you definitely want to take an action on that. Whoops. Whoa. I just speeded through this thing way too fast. So do look at the addresses on these and watch on that. I'm going to stop the share for a second, because since we got through this one rapidly, have y'all got any questions for me at this point? Let me ask that. Because there's a longer one that was actually from last year that I'm going to go over and start that one and go through several things on that one that gives you some more information, because they made this one shorter and I didn't realize how fast I was going to go through this thing. So I'm going to go in that other one real quickly for y'all. And start it. And come back to our Zoom meeting. And let me see first to make sure there was no comments put in the chat box. The other part is y'all can speak if you want. I don't see anything in the chat box. Okay. So I'm going to do the share. I guess I'm so used to doing with my classes at school, because I do them an hour session each week and try to cover about 2 hours worth of information, that I just speed it right on through. This one's got some repeat stuff, so we'll skip some pages on it as we go. And the other one is, this one says says KT Kiwanis, because I presented it not long ago to them, actually a month ago today. So my email address again for you, and that they mention a couple of things here. The first one they mention about is they will call you. If you get a phone call from somebody that says they're calling from Microsoft or some other company, and they know, watching your computer, they know you've got all kinds of viruses, etc., on your computer. No, they haven't been in your machine. They are just making that up. Hang up and do not give them any more information. If you really do think they may be legitimate, still hang up on them and then call that company back, not from the number that's there, but look it up and find the published number on it. Because there is groups out there calling and saying, this is Microsoft, and we know that you've got malware, viruses, etc., on your machine, and we'll clean that off for you. They haven't gotten in your machine, and sometimes when you answer it, you know your machine's sitting there turned off. Or people I know that don't even have a computer have gotten the calls, and they're going, what? And panic and call me about it. It gives you a warning here on the airport charging stations. Just be careful on them when you're using the USB cable, that it obviously can carry data across it. And so somebody can set up on those where that it steals information through them and from that location. There are actually USB cables you can buy out there that do not carry data across them. Actually, you can get given them sometimes, because I've got one here that I was given at one of the trade shows I went to, and it actually is just data. And so you can get, not data, but just power, and it won't transfer data across. So when I plug my phone into it, I can't transfer pictures from my phone to my computer on it, but I can charge my phone. So there are ways around that one. Their suggestion to you is use a portable charger. That's where you get the little battery packs that you can use, and to use those, charge those up. You can charge them up beforehand. You can actually charge them at these locations, because them connecting into your battery, there's no data in there for them to get. And then you can plug that little portable battery into your phone and charge your phone on it. So that's just one to be aware of. Whoops, I think I skipped a slide there. I did. So it says don't use untrusted Wi-Fi networks. That you will have to use those a lot of times still, but be careful on which ones you choose. And if you're on the McDonald's network or the Panera Bread one, I wouldn't be paying my bills going across that, because you're on an unsecured one. Now, them actually marking Xfinity here. Xfinity, if you're an Xfinity customer, Comcast customer, they actually put onto your wireless access point there that they have a public one that goes out that's not for the public, but actually is a secure one, which would have the lock beside it, like the others did above. So that one, the second one up, actually probably is Xfinity's one that they put on everybody's wireless adapter that's one of their customers, so that anybody that's an Xfinity customer can actually use that adapter to go through. There's a lot of people not happy with that. There's a lot of people that love that. But then it looks like here somebody has tried to set up one that looks like the same thing to steal, able to steal information. Phone hotspots are not always available for you. And then phishing, they go through some of the same type things, but this one's a little different than the other one. So they're trying to steal things like your username, your password. They definitely want to steal contact list. And those phishing emails, quite often, when you send out an email to more than a few people, don't put their names in the to or the CC, put them in the BCC. If you put it in the BCC, that whoever receives that email only sees who it came from and their email address. If you put it in the CC or BCC, two problems. First one is it shows all the names at the top, and that goes for both of them. But whoever's going to read it has to look over all of those names and email addresses. and that's irritating to the reader. Second thing is, if they forward it to somebody else, and if it ends up in somebody that is a hacker of some type, that they can get a hold of it, and there they got a list of names that they know each other, and if they send to that list of names appearing to be a person on that list, the person's more likely to respond to it. So that gets into spear phishing, and that's actually what occurred with the Kiwanis attack about a month ago, and so occurred about once a year for the last few years. So use the BCC to hide the names on your emails when you're sending to more than just a few people, because you never do know where your email gets to. They love to get credit card and debit card and checking account information. If you ever put information in on something and then go, whoa, that wasn't right, you need to contact your credit card company and a bank and such immediately. And if you use your credit card instead of your debit card, you actually have some more protection on it. Because on credit cards, you are actually protected if you report it in a timely manner. And that's a question of what is timely. And a lot of the credit cards actually watch your stuff too. Discover's caught it several times when my number's been stolen. And I didn't know it. But if you do report it to the credit card company quickly, you're not responsible for any of the charge. And Discover's been good on me when they caught it. And even when I told them one time I was on the road, they said, well, we can overnight it to your hotel tonight, so you have it when you walk out tomorrow morning, a new card. But if you use your debit card, you're probably going to be responsible for $50 at least of the charge. So credit cards can be handy versus a debit card. Phishing. Email is the most common one done on it right now. Instant messaging, that's sort of, I don't like that one appearing in many lists anymore, because instant messaging is sort of a historical thing. Texting, like I say, I've gotten in the last 2 weeks 2 texting phishing messages. And then phone calls, they will occur that too. And y'all are all used to those warranty ones. And then it says here, phishing accounts for the 90-95% of security threats. Now, here's the other problem on that, interesting one on that too, is of the actual attacks on machines in the last 2 years, according to the FBI, somewhere about 75 or 80% of attacks have actually been ransomware attacks, which are not good at all, because you can lose all your information, plus it can be sold out there on the market, and they charge huge ransom. But then if you pay the ransom, which the FBI does not recommend, that you may or may not get your information back. They may or may not de-encrypt it, but they've got your information. They can still sell it. They may tell you that they're going to not, but remember, it's crooks. So you're trying to get people to click through to places where what their object is to get you to click to a fake web page to where you didn't intend to go. It could be a text link, it could be a button, it could be an image. So it might be you click on an image, you could click on a button that's there, like that one we saw a little bit ago at the very beginning, or it could be a text link that's just a link, and usually they're underlined or they're colored slightly different, and when you click on it, it takes you someplace. So then they show you an example of that where there's a text link down in there to click restart your membership, would take you to something. Again, hover over that before you click on it. There's the restart membership button. Hovering over it will not always work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And then there's an image link up here where if you clicked on the Netflix at the top, it would actually take you somewhere too, although it could be just an image that doesn't take you anywhere. Says there's 1.4 million phishing websites created every month. I don't know if that number is correct or not, but probably is. And so you could be, when you download those things, that it's could be installing all kinds of stuff, malware, ransomware, any type of malware on there. The other one is, be aware that they will also try to scare you at times, which is scareware, and where you may get a message that says, if you don't go pay, if you'll pay $250 that it says it's from the FBI and that they've observed you with child pornography on your machine. And if you'll pay $250 with a green dot card to them immediately to the FBI, to wherever they tell you to send it to, which they're saying will go to the FBI, that there will be no charges pressed against you. If you see that screen pop up, close it, and usually it is not real, and that it's not even going to put anything on your machine. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it will lock your machine on out with ransomware on it. But a lot of times it's not, and just ignore it. Realize, first off, the FBI would never give you the option to pay them a small amount of money to not have child pornography charges pressed against you. And then throw you a few definitions here for you. Malware is anything that is software that will do harm to the computer or the network. Ransomware is one that holds your files as a hostage until a ransom is paid. And even if the ransom is paid, they may not give you back the key to unencrypt them, because what they do is they go and encrypt them all. Spyware, it records keystrokes, your activities, sends the data to some hacker of some type. That's where super anti-spyware I really like for cleaning those off. Social engineering is where they get you to take an action that's not in your best interest. And that could be, social engineering could be lots of ways. It can even be done person to person. That I could walk up and get you to go ahead and let me in the building because I told you didn't realize I'm not an employee, and you let me slide on through because I tell you I don't have my ID card with you. Can I go in with you as you go through the door? And you do it. And then they mention common phishing techniques, winning prizes in fake competitions, like the one I just told you about, an Amazon competition, which I know I didn't enter, or you'll see the ones about lotteries. And a lot of these are old ones too. The lottery ones are actually old. Some of you on here that were seeing pictures a few minutes ago can remember when, before the computers, of people sending out these things that we used to get, what's the Nigerian, what they're calling the Nigerian emails and stuff now, where it's quite often saying about we had a relative in Nigeria or whatever die, and that we get millions of dollars, or they left these millions of dollars and we're going to get transferred to the yes or whatever. Used to be they sent you actually a mail letter telling you about these things too, or about these different type contests that really didn't exist. So it's not anything new. But when you go in to enter the thing on it, and it'll tell you, some of them will tell you right off, they're wanting you to pay $50 to be able to claim your $1 million prize. Rest assured, if you won a real lottery, no, you don't have to pay any cash to get your prize. And that they want things like your name, your date of birth, your address, and the big one is the bank details. But what they've done is you've given them the information and they've hit the lottery, because now they clean out your bank account. Of course, when I tell my students on that, most of them look at me odd and go, well, if they clean out my bank account, they won't even be able to go down to McDonald's and buy a $1 Coke, because they don't have enough in the bank account to cover that. So they'll claim to be from all kinds of things, and that now we just passed through the season back there in December of where a lot of them appear to be shipping things, but now I'm seeing things right now that you get things that say they're from Amazon and that you ordered some item, expensive item, and it's being sent to somebody somewhere else. And it's a phishing attempt. It wants you to go in and enter your information to cancel that order. Ignore those. They're not real. Spear phishing, again, which I talked about a little bit ago, that it points to very specific people or organization, and that they're targeting who they're sending this phishing attempt to. They're not just sending it to everybody. And a spear phishing one may be saying that it's from the IT department and they need you to give them your passwords so they can fix a problem with your account. no, your IT department does not need your password to go in and fix your account. They've got master passwords. They can get into everybody's account anyway. And then this was one, like I was telling you about, that this was a spear phishing attack. This wasn't this most current one that happened. The most current one said that the governor was out of state and needed some cards gift cards bought to give to some organization that was doing something with children. That was a children's hospital or something. This one came out looking like it was a GoFundMe account, came from a governor and wanted you to make a donation to help on it. And that it really wasn't real and had nothing to do. They got a hold of the email addresses and sent it out. And that does it regularly. That they can go out and get the names and email addresses of all of your state officers off of all the Kiwanis clubs off of their websites. And I do the website for the Kentucky, Tennessee Kiwanis, and I used to do the Georgia one. Actually, when I did the Georgia one, most of the time I had the email addresses. You could get it there, but you had to actually go and copy it off yourself, type it. It did not just show like this for you. It didn't show that easily, but they can just go do a search and find the information. Kiwanis International actually is recommending now that as we do our web pages again, update them to not put email addresses on the page except for the very top officers, and even on them that they are to be hidden on what the email address is. So that will create links to actual contact pages that will then send the information to that officer so that that information's not there. It wasn't something that took a whole lot of trouble for them to get and do that spear phishing attack. And so that you mentioned here, you could just do a search on email in Kiwanis and you can get all kinds of information out there. And you can do that with any other organization. And so they just pulled off a web page right here to show how on it. But notice right here, they didn't, in this case, they didn't have Jennifer's email address appearing directly on it. You had to click on it to actually see that email address. So this one wasn't as easy, the example they're showing there, as it could have been, because it could have been with the Jennifer's name and then her actual email address right under her name or whatever. So that one's actually got a little bit of protection. So then they want to take advantage of us on what we're doing. So then the red flags, like they mentioned before, big one is that they cause an emotional response, that they want you to act first without thinking. So stop, think, and then do your act. And so it says there that there's an urgency on it for you to act now. So that email that they showed and the one I described to you was the governor was out of state in the most current one, and he needed it done now. And that it's always, it needs done right now. It's not something you can stop and think about and do later. So be careful on looking at where the source is. The promise is too good to be true. You don't have a rich relative that died in Nigeria and has left the money in a bank in London that they need to get money from you to be able to transfer and then transfer to your account, and you'll have millions of dollars. Watch the links and watch the attachment, and typos will often be in there, and bad grammar. And I mean bad grammar. I'm not the best at grammar, and I'll recognize the bad grammar in them. But they'll misspell things that Amazon will be misspelled, be AMAZON instead of ZON, and so on. So you can catch those. So stop and think. And look at the from line, see who it really come from. Who's it going to? What's the subject? And when was it sent? And what's all down in there? If you know the sender, which one that was recent sent out from the governors, I knew the sender, that it wasn't something I expected and it was out of character for them. After all, we're in the pandemic now, and it said he was out of state at this point. Very unlikely he was out of state a month ago at that point and needed this done. Normal times might be a more possibility. And hopefully this summer that he and I'll both be out of state, that we'll get to go to the international conference in Salt Lake City, since it's still a conference but not a convention. So here, notice there it's from Costco, but from a manager, that the address has absolutely nothing to do with Costco, and it's actually from Japan. And then if you were to click on these hover on these links, you'd find they go to some strange things and they don't go to Costco. A Netflix one again, which they showed you on the other, a similar type one, that if you went and logged in your account, you discover that you didn't have this problem. But if you use their link here, you don't go to your account and it looks like you did. So notice there they mention about where Netflix has become a lowercase L instead of an I in Netflix. So it's sometimes things like that that have been changed. And then so watch the different things. The generic greetings will also be a good one. But spear phishing, they will manage to get your name associated with. If they get the correct list of email addresses, they got your name and they'll put your name into it. And if you got an uncomfortable feeling about it, or it's just odd, not logical, or it doesn't follow correctly, don't do anything. And that's the major ones on that. So I'm going to wrap up because we're down to the last minute. I'm going to stop the share. Hopefully y'all got some information out of me that was useful today. I hope it was helpful as we've gone through this, and that y'all have a good weekend.